Hi, my name's Pat Ezzell, and I have the privilege of serving TVA as the corporate historian. I've worked for TVA for over 30 years, and it is my privilege to be here with you today to talk about the long public power partnership that TVA has enjoyed with the city of Memphis. When I say public power, I mean there are no shareholders. You are the shareholder, and everything that TVA earns from the sale of power gets channeled back to you through our work in energy, environmental stewardship, and economic development. We are a unique public utility whose mission is to serve you to make life better. So hold on, get ready, we're gonna have a lot of fun. To get started, I like to make sure that everybody's on the same page regionally. So where is TVA? This is the area that we serve in the southeastern part of the United States. We serve this area for power, environmental stewardship, and economic development. Our service area that you see there is the area where we serve electricity, okay? The area we provide electricity, and you can see it includes almost all of Tennessee and parts of the 6 surrounding states there. We stretch actually from the Appalachian Mountains in the east all the way to the Mississippi River in the west, and we include major cities such as Memphis. Now, you may be surprised to learn that TVA's roots go back nearly 100 years, but I'm not going to go back that far today. We're going to start in 1929. Hopefully, some of y'all remember what happened that year. It's been compared almost with the times we're in today, but in October of 1929, the stock market crashed, and the economic boom of the 1920s came to an end with the onset of what they called then an unprecedented economic disaster, which was the Great Depression. On the heels of the Depression, the country wanted a new political leader. They weren't pleased with Herbert Hoover, who was in office, and so in 1932, Franklin D. Roosevelt, who actually promised a New Deal for all, was elected president. And you can see on the slide there his great campaign button. So I want to talk about hard times in this part of the country. Now, while the nation got hit with the Depression, this part of the country was already in a pretty poor state. A lot of people I've heard say that they didn't even know that a Depression had hit because times were so hard. So what was it like, really, to live in this part of the country in the 1930s? Well, first of all, severe flooding disrupted lives year after year. You can see from the photo on the slide there of the crops being washed out. Also, the Tennessee River was what we call a non-navigable river, meaning that you could not travel the entire length of the Tennessee River from Knoxville to Paducah, Kentucky. Okay? And why was that a problem? That was a problem because the river was just too shallow to get barges through, and we needed those barges to move our goods to market. That impeded our economy desperately. Also, most people lived on farms without electricity. Most farms didn't even have running water either. Primitive farming practices used up the nutrients in the soil and allowed the soil to wash away every time we had those floods. It was common for half the region's population to be on some kind of charitable relief or government assistance. And most people couldn't even read or write. They didn't have the skills to get those good paying jobs. So it was a really rough place to make a living in the 1930s. So TVA was created when FDR signed the TVA Act, May 18th, 1933. TVA was established as a government corporation to manage the land and water of the region to make life better, okay? How are we going to do that? This included controlling floods, improving the river channel so that you could have that navigation, and of course providing low-cost, reliable electricity to every community in the region. And the great thing about that is it's not just electricity in the cities, but it's out in this rural area. Those farmers needed electricity, and TVA was able to provide that rural electrification. Again, created to make life better for everyone. So looking specifically at Memphis, how did TVA impact Memphis? Well, when President Roosevelt signed the TVA Act in 1933, many people felt that the opportunity had arrived for Memphis to get cheaper electric power. Memphis was very important to TVA. Memphis at the time was the largest city in Tennessee. It had over 250,000 people living there. It was the world's largest cotton market, and it also was renowned for hardwood lumber. So Memphis was important. And TVA was important to Memphis. Before TVA provided your power, the local power company supplied the city of Memphis with electricity, and that electricity was pretty expensive. In fact, when Tupelo, Mississippi, which was the first city to actually get TVA power, the first municipality, when it was scheduled to receive TVA power in February 1934, the Memphis Press Scimitar published cost comparisons, and you'll see those on the screen. And what you notice there, so you have a 5-room house, you're using about 20 kilowatt hours of electricity a month. You can see that the Tupelo rates, the TVA rates, are about 75 cents. Look at the Memphis rates, $1.10. You can see the comparisons there, and it's almost double what people were paying in Memphis than what they were paying in Tupelo. So TVA power, the question comes up. In April of 1934, Memphis officials met with TVA board director David Lilienthal, and you can see a photo of him meeting with some folks there in the center photo on your slide. These folks returned home convinced that TVA power could make Memphis, and I quote, a great city of prosperous, happy people. A campaign began to have citizens vote on bringing TVA power to Memphis. Now, the Memphis Press Scimitar, one of the local papers there, regularly published articles and cartoons in favor of TVA. They were very pro-TVA power, and there are some of the cartoons that you can see on the screen. I especially like the one of the circus performers asking, how can you get cheaper rates? Vote for TVA on November 6th. The paper also had a great column, and it's called Why I'm for TVA. They ask a variety of folks, why do you want TVA power? So Mrs. Ed Toulon, a housewife, said she was 100% for TVA. TVA means cheaper electricity, and cheaper electricity means an electric refrigerator, perhaps an electric stove, and other conveniences for me. So it's going to make her life a little easier. Other housewives said it would mean that they could run electric fans more in the summer and own electric appliances that, again, would make their life easier. Again, making life better for people. That's what TVA wanted to do. Then we have an attorney named Mr. Virgil Fulling. He had a broader viewpoint. It wasn't just about how that electricity would help him specifically. He was for TVA because he was for the future prosperity of Memphis. Fulling said, power is the lifeblood of industry. So the big date, the big vote was on November 6th, 1934. The citizens of Memphis voted overwhelmingly in favor of getting TVA power. The vote was something around 32,000 to 1,800. Again, overwhelmingly in favor of TVA power. And interestingly, the vote was memorialized with a street sign in downtown Memphis. If you're ever down there and you see the sign, November 6th Street, that's what it's about. It memorializes the vote for Memphis to get TVA power. So TVA and MLGW began their partnership. The Unified Memphis Light and Water Division was formed in 1935 to oversee power and water systems, and a contract was signed with TVA the same year. Now, by 1939, TVA and the city of Memphis jointly purchased Memphis Power and Light Company properties, And there you see a couple of substation properties. One is the North Memphis substation, the other is the South Memphis substation. So 1939 proves to be kind of an interesting year. We're right on the verge of World War II. In fact, Europe has gone to war. At this time, Memphis found itself in a relatively stable position. The worst of the Depression had passed. The city had received national praise for its safety and public health activities. The city population had grown nearly 50,000. And to keep that growing population thriving, the city engaged in an extensive advertising campaign. They wanted to attract new industry to Memphis, and so they advertised in papers in New York City and in Chicago, promoting Memphis as the ideal business community. People were making great strides, not just Memphis, but TVA. And then what happens? In December of '41, the United States enters World War II. And TVA, who had spent all this time working on flood control, navigation, developing that system of locks and dams, working with agricultural fertilizer, all kinds of things that they were doing, they pivot, and all their focus goes to the national defense. To provide additional power for war industries, TVA began one of the largest construction programs in this country's history. At our wartime peak in 1942, we had under construction 12 hydro facilities and 1 steam plant. By 1945, 75% of all the electricity that TVA was producing went into war industries or to the war effort. And not only did we do construction, but there were a lot of things that we also did to help the country win the war. We produced phosphorus. 60% of the phosphorus came from TVA for munitions and bombs. We mapped nearly 500,000 miles of territory, foreign territory, in the Pacific and European theaters. We created war housing with our demountable house designs, and I could go on and on about what TVA did during World War II. Memphis helped too. The number of factories increased dramatically in Memphis during the war era, growing nearly 40%, from 329 in 1939 to 460 by 1947. And especially in the aeroplane industry, Memphis certainly stood out in that arena. Cotton, the king of Memphis business, emerged from a long slump with demand doubling from the Depression times. People needed cotton for uniforms, for all kinds of military equipment. Now, when the war ended, Memphis, like other parts of the nation, enjoyed the prosperity of the post-war economy. This was happening all over the United States, but especially here in the Southeast, industries moved into the Tennessee Valley area to take advantage of the low-cost electricity offered by TVA. By 1945, the navigation channel that TVA set out to complete was finished. Okay, you could then travel the full 652-mile length of the Tennessee River to this region here in Memphis. You could start in Knoxville, go all the way to Paducah, Kentucky, go up on the Ohio, go down on the Mississippi, come all the way down to Memphis, and then you could take your goods and all the way to anywhere in the world once that happened after 1945. This allowed all kinds of goods to be shipped, and it was a tremendous economic advantage for this part of the country. It changed our economy greatly. Now, really during our inception up through about 1945, we were building dams. Hydro was our primary way to provide electricity, hydroelectric generation. By the early 1950s, the demand for TVA electricity was outpacing the capacity of the dams in the river system to produce it. As a result, TVA began building coal-fired steam plants, and by 1955, coal surpasses hydro as TVA's primary source of power. That's a pretty big deal. Now, to provide its own power supply, the Memphis City Commission authorized MLGW to begin construction of the Allen Steam Plant here in Memphis. It was named after Major Thomas H. Allen, who happened to be MLGW's president at the time. It's a very interesting time in Memphis history. TVA, Memphis, and MLGW have been partners since the 1930s, with this one notable exception. Memphis left the TVA system in 1958 when the federal government proposed allowing a private company to build a generating plant to serve Memphis instead of TVA. So the options were this private plant, TVA. Well, Memphis decided that they were going to build their own plant, and that's when they built Allen Steam Plant to generate its own power. So on May 22nd, 1959, Allen began commercial operation, providing about half the city's power, with the rest purchased from TVA. So that's 1959. 1962, there begins to be some communication between the city of Memphis and TVA. Maybe they were not sure that they wanted to keep going like they were, and by 1965, MLGW returned to TVA to lower its cost and to provide more stable rates. The move saved MLGW's customers $10 million a year. MLGW also leased Allen Steam Plant to TVA, and they became TVA's largest customer, serving about 750,000 citizens in Shelby County alone. Also in 1965, the first of 4 giant 500 kilovolt transformers were built to supply a new transmission line that was going to run from Johnsonville, Tennessee to Cordova. This enabled the $30 million line to supply power directly to Memphis. So moving forward in time, we get to be 1983, and that marks TVA's 50th anniversary. We had a huge celebration. We had a barge called the Valley Adventure, and this barge traveled through 4 states on 4 rivers, went to 23 communities, and the final stop was at Mud Island here in Memphis. A huge party there to celebrate our 50th anniversary. In fact, about 300,000 people between April and October visited the TVA barge. This is the type of community event, when I talk about public power, that you get with public power. You get these community celebrations that you might not get with other types of utilities. So shortly after TVA celebrated 50 years, guess who else celebrated? MLGW in 1989 celebrated its 50th anniversary. And in a special section of the Memphis Commercial Appeal, TVA dedicated a page that highlighted the proud partnership with MLGW, saying that the utility and TVA have been helping Memphis shine brighter for 50 years. TVA emphasized its pride doing business with Memphis and affirmed its commitment to contributing to the community. Again, public power. So we have some continued milestones to talk about after our anniversaries. In 2003, TVA and MLGW forged an agreement that saved Memphians about $15 million a year. Under this agreement, MLGW paid TVA in advance for 15 years of electricity at a discounted rate. 10 years later, in 2013, TVA tested the Energy Conservation Program score, E-score, in Memphis. The almost $20 million investment helped provide some 3,700 homeowners with $900,000 in rebates. And in 2019, TVA and MLGW completed the 350th home improved through TVA Energy Right Home Uplift Program. So we're going to talk again about Allen Fossil Plant. If you recall, the City of Memphis built Allen. TVA leased Allen from the City of Memphis in the 60s. In 1984, TVA buys the Allen plant outright. So we own Allen beginning in 1984. 30 years later, in 2014, the TVA board approved a nearly $1 billion investment to replace Allen with a modern combined cycle natural gas plant. The decision was part of a system-wide effort to provide Memphians and all TVA customers with safe, clean, and reliable electricity at a low cost. So in April of 2018, the plant began operating two of the world's largest and most efficient gas turbines and a combustion steam turbine, providing enough power to serve more than 500,000 homes. Now, the 3 coal units at the old site were retired, and the new site hosts the region's largest TVA solar facility. So we've gone from coal to combined cycle natural gas. We also have solar there. That's a pretty remarkable change in that course of time. In fact, the solar facility has more than 3,000 solar panels that provide about 1 megawatt of renewable energy capacity to the site. And I want to talk a little bit now about specifically how we partner in Memphis. As a customer of TVA, Memphis receives the full benefits of the low-cost public power system with 99% reliability. 99.999% reliability. And you're sitting there on the other side of the screen going, I don't know what that means. Well, let me tell you what that means. So when you're at your house and you decide it's time to cook supper, or you need to wash a load of clothes, or you want to listen to your music, when you flip that switch, you're pretty much sure that it's going to work, it's going to come on, and you're going to get to do whatever it is you want to do with electricity. And again, let me touch on this public power that I keep bringing up. While some utilities focus on generating profits for stockholders, TVA provides service to you and everybody in the valley who lives, works, and plays in this part of the country. Instead of generating profits, TVA generates value by providing reliable power at the lowest feasible cost, by managing the valley's natural and cultural resources, and by working in partnership with others for sustainable economic development. We've talked a lot about energy partnerships in Memphis, but did you know that as part of our environmental stewardship work, TVA has reduced carbon 60% since 2005? And you're going, great. What does that mean? That means that the air that you breathe is cleaner. Okay? The air that your children breathe is cleaner. We also have been working on a public engagement plan here in Memphis for coal combustion residuals. And I think you probably heard a lot about that in the news. In terms of economic development, TVA has helped create 28,000 jobs in Memphis and $3.6 billion, that's B for billion, in capital investment since 2012. We're also working on the Allen coal site to make it a future industrial development site. So there's a lot that TVA is doing here in Memphis. And I want to point out some ways that we're investing in Memphis. TVA's public power model allows us to partner with customers we serve and make investments in their communities. We do this in Memphis, we do it all across the Tennessee Valley. But here in Memphis, We invest over $70 million each year in the Memphis community, and that includes $17 million of tax equivalent payments. Some specified things that we've done include the Energy Right weatherization and home uplift program that I mentioned just a minute ago, where 350 homes have been renovated. The mobile weatherization training house. We have the Mid-South Food Bank partnership, and we also have the Shelby County Schools back-to-school block parties and backpack giveaways. So those are things that you may have participated in or have heard about recently in the news. So the point is, TVA started out here in Memphis. Memphis wanted TVA. We came in. We've been here for over 80 years. As I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, TVA is a unique public utility. Our mission is to serve you and make your life better. It's a mission we were built on. It's a mission that we believe in, and one that we look forward to continuing for decades to come.